Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to episode 66 of Humanity versus Insanity, the Crane Report. Well, tonight's episode is primarily going to focus on what's occurring north of the border, because I think we have some very serious concerns about what's occurring in Scotland. But before I get onto that and welcome my guest this evening, I just want to revisit AV7, because AV7 is fast approaching. It's, I think, a little under 9 weeks away. And last week I did announce most of the speakers. We still have one more speaker to confirm, and boy, that's a doozy. But in addition to the names I gave you last week, we now have Fiona Shakila Burns, who is a lady who appeared on an episode of Humanity vs. Insanity late last year, talking about how her parents effectively helped her recover from leukemia when she was an 11-year-old by avoiding orthodox medical treatments, and how she effectively cured herself when cancer returned when she was aged 40. So she will be joining the lineup there. And I'm pleased to say that my amazing graphics specialist, Kyle, has put together a promo, very short promo video for the event. And so it's going to get its first airing right now.
The Alternative View Conference presents AV7 Humanity Rising. Speakers include Ian R. Crane, Thomas Sheridan, Patrick Henningsen, Max Egan, Zen Gardner, Dr. Graham Downing, Willem Felderhoff, Field McConnell, Vanessa Beeley, Michael Shrimpton, Fiona Burns. 13th to the 15th of May 2016, Horwood House, near Milton Keynes. Book online at alternativeview.co.uk or call 0207 558 8869. AV7, bringing together some of the most inspirational agents of real change.
Honestly, I've spoken at a lot of gigs, and I'd say this is the best gig that I've spoken at, just because of the lineup of speakers.
Excellent piece of work there by Kyle. Thank you. And that'll be up on my YouTube channel and the Alternative View YouTube channel tomorrow. So we'll be hopefully sharing that around. And of course, AV7 is focused on finding solutions. And the good news is that we have so many situations that have effectively, I won't say resolved, but are on the way to challenging the establishment as a result of discussion and individuals taking away ideas and initiatives from previous AV events. And we certainly plan to continue that with AV7. So once again, the web address up on screen here is alternativeview.co.uk. These events are residential, and they are unique in that respect. And of course, the whole idea is to bring 150, 200 people together who are like-minded. I don't expect everyone to agree on everything because, of course, that's what creates the discussion and the debate. But if you're looking for a lively, informative, and certainly enjoyable weekend, then AV7 will provide just that. Well, on to the problems of the day. And not least, I think one of the things that has perhaps disturbed a significant chunk of the population is the continuing genocidal agenda of the Department of Work and Pensions. Of course, Ian Duncan Smith probably has as much, if not more, blood on his hands than Tony Blair. The difference being, of course, that he does it surreptitiously by forcing people effectively into an early death through illness, disease, malnutrition, or ultimately, of course, some people feel that things are so helpless that they end up committing suicide. Well, in what is quite possibly the most sociopathic parliament of modern times, a number of MPs actually voted a few days ago to cut disability benefits by as much as £30 a week. And this is for people who are already literally living on the breadline. Now, you probably can't read the names of that on screen, so I would simply encourage you to do a search for MPs who voted in favour of disability cuts. And it's the usual suspects, the usual individuals who demonstrate sociopathic tendencies like Michael Fallon and Jeremy Hunt. So no real surprises there, of course. But one or two surprises, not least Dr. Sarah Wollaston, the MP for Totnes and South Hams, who has actually established a bit of a reputation for doing the right thing, despite the evident pressure that's put on her by the party whip. Well, having these MPs vote to cut disability benefits, I took a look at some of the MPs' expenses. And I have to say that even I was shocked by what I discovered here. And have a look at this for yourself, because you can find out the amount of expenses that your own MP has claimed over recent years. And the website is up there on screen. It's www.mpsexpenses.info/hash/search. And if you click on all MPs, what you find is that in the year up to the 30th of November 2015, they had claimed a grand total of £103.4 million. Now, that calculates out at an average of £3,059 per week per MP through that 12-month period. And I am going to single out Sarah Wollaston because, this was really quite a surprise for me, because back in the last Parliament, her expenses averaged around about £40,000 or so. But in the year up to the 30th of November 2015, she claimed a total of £168,859.77. Now, that is, in the region of a little more than the average, but it's certainly over £3,000 a week. And these are the people who voted in favour of disability cuts. So this is sociopathic behaviour. And I'm sure many other people right across the country are literally shocked and deeply disturbed by this agenda to literally destroy the underclass, and by forcing them into ever-increasing poverty. So do follow that up. Do check out your own MP's expenses on that website. And if you're disturbed by what you see, get in contact with them. Ask them the hard questions and hold their feet to the fire. Well, a set of MPs and MSPs that need their feet holding to the fire are none other than those of the Scottish Nationalist Party. And I put out a promotional graphic for tonight's show, and this attracted a fair bit of attention. And during the course of the week, I actually had a couple of SNP members make direct contact with me in an attempt to persuade me that actually the SNP are not as bad as I'm cracking them up to be. Well, let me say that back in September of 2014, in the shows prior to the referendum on September the 18th of that year, I made it very clear that I was absolutely pro-independence. I think Scotland should be independent. And I was rooting for the SNP. And in fact, I think it was episode 21 that I actually put out proposed a manifesto of what the SNP should do once they actually managed to get their independence. Well, I have to say that since then, the scales have fallen away from my eyes, and I have seen the SNP for what they are. And anyone who is still of the opinion that the SNP are a party for the people or for the Scottish nation, then sadly, I have to say that they are mesmerised by delusion. And tonight, my guest, Mel Kelly, is perhaps one of the staunchest critics of the unfolding SNP agenda. And, Mel has certainly enlightened me along the way on the SNP, how shall I say, Machiavellian behaviour. And so it's with great pleasure that I welcome Mel back to Humanity vs. Insanity. So, Mel, how are you doing?
Good evening, Ian. Very busy. Very busy.
Well, and I think you're going to be extremely busy in the next 56 days until the Scottish elections on May 7th.
Yes, basically I did make a request because Cameron has decided that he will put in the EU referendum at the same time as we are trying to have a Scottish election to make sure SNP gets no scrutiny, because Nicola doesn't want to talk about Scotland. She now wants to talk about the EU, but we've got Scottish elections coming up. So our partner in crime, Cameron, says, let's just put the EU referendum at the same time as the Scottish election so that the tartan Tories don't get any scrutiny at all.
Well, this is a tried and tested tactic, because actually in the run-up to the 2010 election in the UK, that was when the expenses scandal was dropped on the people of the country. And so the media was totally focused. Actually, it was 2009. It was the European elections. So that the media was totally focused on the MP's expenses scandal rather than actually looking at the detail of what the European elections actually meant and the impact they would have on the country.
I mean, the reason that David Cameron doesn't want the spotlight on SNP is because in the past couple of months they've announced that they're going to roll out David Cameron's flagship policy to take every school out of council control. They keep trying to deny it, but the reports are in the paper. One of the councils actually said, we are going to take every school out of council control. I challenged an MSP on it, and he kept saying, the Scottish Government's not going to do it. The Scottish Government's not going to do it. I said, yeah, but it's in the paper. The Scottish Government's going to get their councillors to do it. I said, don't play with words. I said, your party is basing on a report written by the Tory think tank is going to roll out David Cameron's flagship policy. I says, if we wanted David Cameron's policies, we would have voted Tory. But it looks like we have, but you just do it by stealth. You keep imposing Tory policies in Scotland, waving a Scotland flag, and nobody's meant to notice.
Well, hey, listen, I found this graphic earlier today, and I think this, pretty much sums it up. Of course, it's very subliminal. But, Nicola Sturgeon has effectively become the dictator of Scotland. Now, of course, she's not alone in this, because what is surprising for people in England, and even some people in Scotland are not aware of this, and that is that Nicola, of course, is actually married to Peter Murrell, who is the chief executive of the SNP. So what we actually have is a Sturgeon dynasty here, and with Murrell sort of pulling the strings in the background. And I think one of the things that you have seen at the party conference over this weekend is the way in which the SNP are literally now bullying their members to do everything that they can and basically do whatever it takes to ensure that Scotland is a one-party state after May 7th.
I mean, basically, Tony Blair took over Labour and he threw out the Socialists. And what the members in the SNP are now seeing is the new SNP, just like Blair, only they're throwing out the Nationalists. So on Friday they said Jim Sillars, the ex-deputy leader of the party, they're thinking of kicking him out because he dared to promote one of the other yes parties for the second vote. Then on Saturday, party members were told at the conference, we don't care if you want to ban fracking. You have got absolutely no say. Only the leaders in this party decide what's happening. So if they want to frack Scotland and the members try and stop them, they're told you can't. Then one party member said at conference, here we are. This is like actually being in Labour in the Blair years. This is exactly what's happening in the SNP, the exact same thing, where the new breed leaders have walked in, taken over, they're kicking out nationalists, and they're dictating to their party members and Scotland. Then today, this is not the first time members are complaining, sitting councillors are complaining that they're being bullied by the new breed that Nicola and Alex brought in to take over, and party headquarters does nothing about it. And then I was at the conference on Saturday. Outside was a very brave lone woman from Nicola Sturgeon's constituency with a banner up explaining to the nation that the constituency is suffering from filth, rats and mice because private landlords, now remember 16 of the new socialist MPs from MSP are private landlords. Private landlords in Nicola's constituency that are well protected by SNP, squeezing foreigners into houses. The place is filthy, and because she had the guts to stand there outside conference and let people know what's going on in their constituency, Nicola's not doing anything. Two bully boys came out of the conference. They had their SNP badges on, and they come up, and one of them tried to intimidate her. So I stepped in and stopped him. And I just made it plain to him, here, do you think we don't realise who you really are? I says, you did a deal with Cameron during the referendum behind her back for her water. You've given Cameron control of our police, Cameron control of our ambulances, Cameron control of our education. I says, basically, at least Margaret Thatcher had the guts to be honest and upfront about what she was. Whereas the new motherland of Scotland, everything's done by stealth.
Well, or stealth or open bullying. In fact, I saw this article in the Herald. Councillor quits SNP and accuses party headquarters of ignoring bullying. And the article continues, an SNP politician has quit the party and launched a blistering attack on bosses who she accused of covering up abuse and bullying in local branches. Marie Penman, a councillor who was convener of the Collie SNP branch and ran the Yes campaign in the town before the independence referendum, said she had been a victim of a campaign of hate waged against her by another senior branch member. Now, this is a councillor that received congratulatory messages from Nicola when she won her seat. But because she is now challenging the party and she's seeing others challenging the party, she is extremely distressed by, as you say, the behaviour of the SNP bully boys. I mean, the only thing that's different between this and another country about 70 years ago is that they're not yet wearing jackboots.
I mean, basically what's happening is party members are being lied to by officials. They tried to put forward a motion at the last conference to question the leadership about why they did a deal with David Cameron to allow Cameron to put Scotland's water in his UK private water market behind the nation's back during the referendum, while Nicola and Alex touring the country saying, oh, we want to split for the UK and we don't do deals with Tories. I mean, the duplicity doesn't get any worse than that. So one party member wanted to put forward a motion at conference to question this. His local branch officials said the motion doesn't need a signature. He gets to conference and he's told, you do need a signature. So he goes back at conference to get his party leaders from the branch, and they told him, we're not signing it. I mean, this is the new breed of people that's taken over. But they're not just bullying their own members. I mean, online, you get gangs of SNP supporting men, chasing women's posts and trying to bully them. So people are getting bullied online, people are getting bullied in the street, people are getting bullied in their branches, and members are getting bullied at conference. So that is what's happening in Scotland right now. And the members have been told, you will vote SNP 1 and 2 because we want a landslide. But now they've decided in this new SNP motherland that they're also going to start bullying every parent in Scotland.
Well, let's. I just want to show this in support of what you said about the SNP really trying to establish their one-party state. This is from Jim Swinney, who is the Deputy First Minister. And here's his statement. We're aiming to win all 73 constituencies in our most comprehensive campaign ever. And basically, I mean, he goes on to say that everyone who's connected to the internet is effectively going to receive the SNP propaganda. I mean, they know they've got an opportunity to go for broke here because they are still riding high on the independence referendum. And they know, you know, especially Peter Morrell, they know that the Indie ref is a carrot. And that carrot right now is on the longest stick they can possibly hang out there and keep the Scottish people believing that the SNP are their only hope for another referendum on independence. And what's become very apparent to me, and fortunately to many others, is that the likelihood of the SNP actually initiating the process for another referendum is basically zero. Because they know that whilst they can keep that carrot out there, then there's a good chance that they might just hold on to power. And I have to say that right now, it really is looking, and there's only, 56, 55 days left before the Scottish election, but it really is looking as though they are literally going to steamroller their way into Holyrood. And as you say, what's coming down the pipe doesn't bear thinking about. And I think that one of the things that is most concerning, it's most concerning to certainly the people in Scotland, and I think the concern south of the border is that if the SNP are able to get away with this, and it looks like they may well be, in Scotland, then there's a good possibility it'll be rolled out in the rest of the country. And of course, I'm talking about the named person scheme, although I think you have an alternate take on that, and you have renamed it the named pervert scheme.
Yes. Basically, for anyone that's unaware, during the referendum where all the bad stuff was put through while we were all distracted, they decided that on average there's 5,000 children in care in Scotland at any given time. And there are always disasters because the police, social work, healthcare, they aren't joined up enough to keep an eye on these children. So even when the state is in charge of children's care, children are still dying. So the SNP's solution was, it's not the state that's at fault, it's every parent in Scotland. So from now on, the minute you're pregnant, then you will be assigned a named person. Every child in Scotland now has a motherland state guardian. And each named person, from the minute you're pregnant until your child is 5 days old, it will be your midwife. And then from then to 5-year-old, it will be health visitors. And then from your children of 5 to 18, then your headmasters and headmistresses will be the named person. The powers they have, they've got the power to get any child alone without being supervised. They have the power to get access to your medical records, your social work records, your police records. No doubt soon it will be your financial records and every bloody record of your life that's being gathered. And what the government has already started doing is secretly getting teachers to give out questionnaires to children, asking them questions about their mum and dad. Does your mum and dad argue? Who makes your breakfast? Did your mum and your dad do nice things with you? What's the family finances like? Now, this is teachers. Now, a team went round every school and they're telling teachers, you have to get the children to fill out these questionnaires from 9 years of age. They said, well, what about parental consent? The team said, parents have to know nothing about it. And the children's question answers have to get sent to a psychiatrist to create a psychiatric profile of every child in Scotland. Without parental knowledge, without the children understanding or even knowing this is how their answers are to be used.
Well, Mel, according to this article that I stumbled across, if we can bring this up on screen, it says, from the sun on their backs and how often they smile to the state of family finances, your child will soon be scrutinised on 529 risk and well-being indicators, and it's all down to the SNP's grotesquely intrusive Named Person Act. So, and by the way, I mean, for people who are south of the border, don't think for 1 minute that this isn't actually being rolled out in England, because it's being rolled out under the name of Prevent, which is the anti-terrorism initiative that's being pushed through schools. And I'm sure that eventually the named person psychological profiling and the Prevent profiling will be combined. So once it goes to the psychoanalyst, what do you anticipate will occur from there, Mel?
Well, it depends what sort of person you are, doesn't it? Because the SNP's very first named person in the trial has been jailed, struck off from teaching, and with the advice that she never works with children again, because the SNP in the trial put this woman as a named person for 200 children to be the guardian instead of the parents. She'll look after their well-being. Why was she jailed? Sharing fantasies about how she wanted to abuse children. So instead of getting it right for every child, the SNP got it so wrong for 200 children that their named person, this wonderful idea, was a pervert. So, well, how did MSPs react to this trial? The MSPs thought this was so wonderful. Let's give every child their own pervert that's in charge of them as their guardian instead of their parents. Now, what better gift can you give a pervert? That the school must secretly question children to identify what ones are vulnerable. And then the perverts can easily identify their next victims. Every school, now schools across England and Scotland, nearly every week we're getting stories about teachers being jailed for sexually abusing and abusing our children. When this trial, the very first person appointed has now been jailed as a pervert. But this law gives someone like that sought out that opportunity for the first time the power to get children alone, completely unsupervised.
Well, I have to say that as a parent, I would be somewhat disturbed by people who actually put themselves forward for this kind of role in the first instance. But one of the observations that I've made is that it strikes me that a lot of the people who are promoting this, interestingly, are childless. It's either, whether it's male or female, but a lot of the people actually pushing this agenda are childless, who have zero experience of raising children, zero experience of dealing with hormonal teenagers. And so, I mean, this is, every way I look at this is a disaster waiting to happen.
Well, I think the very fact that the very first trial of it was a complete disaster, while the named person is now in jail and proven to be a pervert. I mean, but what's more sinister is, the other week, now, they have introduced this conundrum where not only are children from the minute they're born till they're 18, the state's now their guardian, but even the unborn child. So the minute you're pregnant, you have to be allocated a named person. But They tell us via abortion law that the unborn child has no rights. So why are they allocating a named person to an unborn child that has no rights? Because they're putting every woman in Scotland in a situation where they say, right, you're pregnant, you're having an abortion. Yes. Okay, you don't need a named person then. You're a fit parent. Are you keeping the child? Yes, I am. Well, you're unfit to have a child and you need supervised by the state. So we're going to allocate your unborn child a named person right now. And your family are going to have to come and give us the plans for your child. This is every parent in Scotland. Now, if you have your children 6 years apart, that means you have to be supervised by the state for 24 years. They will keep a central file. If any family moves house, then their file, their state file, will move from that named person to the named person where they're going to. And convicted paedophiles have got the human right by law that the state stops supervising them up to a maximum of 15 years. Whereas parents that love their children have to get supervised for 24 by MSPs like Nicola Sturgeon, Alex Salmond, Alex Harvey, Ruth Davison, people that live alternative lifestyles that choose not to have children because they want to live a different way for the people that raise children. But they've decided in their wisdom that the rest of us are unfit to have children and that the motherland will decide what happens with every child now. Now, I know somebody else that did that, as you say, over 70 years ago. And just because someone wears a dress, and make sure it's a red dress, doesn't mean to say that person is fit to be near any child. Because when MSPs, in the trial of this, found that the very first person was a pervert seeking access to children, this proved this law is unfit and dangerous. But for MSPs to roll that out and say every child should have their state pervert. But worse, it's going to be mainly your head teachers. SNP, as I say, are taking our schools out of council control for David Cameron, for businessmen that we don't know to run clusters of schools. Think how the perverts think, because the very first one was a pervert. What a perfect setup for a paedophile ring, where they control the school, they control the named person, they've got access to your family's files, they can do psychological profiles of every child and decide which ones are vulnerable, they can get them on their own. I mean, this is so dangerous to every child in Scotland. This is not getting it right for every child.
Any parent who basically votes for the SNP needs to be aware that basically what they're voting for is to effectively give up all rights over their children. Now, fortunately, there is some debate, and I'm going to flash up a few snippets from the Netmums Forum. And there's just a few comments here, which goes to show that people are at least thinking about this. Here's one: my children already have two named persons, me and my husband. Oh, a family. Wow. It's a complete gross invasion of private family life. The legislation is completely woolly, and my concern is that well-being is not adequately defined, and neither is it clearly set out when the named person can involve themselves and when not. And of course, it was recently divulged that one of the sensitive issues, of course, is vaccination. And initially, parents were assured that the state wouldn't get involved in the debate or decision as to whether a child should be vaccinated. But then a few weeks later, it emerged that that's exactly the type of issue where the state guardian would get involved. Here's another one. A few weeks back, it was spoken out on the news and the head teacher was interviewed. He was explaining that he was the named person for over 380 children. There are bound to be mistakes made by himself. I don't understand why it's needed, and I'm sure many other parents are having the same opinion, because we haven't been told what this named person will have access to in regards to our children. It's quite scary that someone can come in and undermine our decisions as parents. It doesn't sit well with me at all. And then the last one I'm going to show here, last comment, a complete waste of time, money and effort, money which would be better spent on children who do not have interested, involved and competent parents is being wasted on appointing named guardians for the overwhelming majority who do. Hate the SNP's nanny state and desire to interfere in every aspect of our lives. You know, the totalitarian state is potentially just 55 days away from being voted into place. And my concern as well, Mel, of course, is that the postal votes system allows for total manipulation of the system. So as I think it's Peter Lilly's company, isn't it, that has total control of the postal vote system?
Yeah, so basically a company called IDOCS, they got a 3-year contract to cover the Scottish election, the general election, the EU referendum, and the next Scottish election, and the council elections. So Peter Lilly's private company controls the voter registration. He controls all postal votes. So when we think ballot boxes are sealed and it's the counting officers, no, a Tory MP is paid by the SNP to control all postal votes in Scotland, and they get to open them, they get to count them, and they get to stuff them into ballot boxes right up to the 10 p.m. deadline. Now, how can you use that? Well, if you've got control of the voters' roll system, then, of course, when we go in to vote, there's those wee lists where they score the people's names off. So all Peter Lilly's company needs is those lists so that they can fill out postal votes for the people that don't normally vote, stuff them into ballot boxes, and that's why they wanted all the ballot papers destroyed immediately, because they don't want us finding out. Now, see, in my constituency at the general election, by 9:30, I was told 20% of the votes were postal votes.
Which is outrageous.
There is no way that 20% of people in my area put in postal votes. But that's very high figures that somebody sitting there, a private company with a Tory MP in charge, filling out postal votes and stuffing them in. Yes, I see that as highly plausible. So SNP pays Peter Lilly to stuff ballot boxes full of no. SNP paid Peter Lilly to stuff ballot boxes full of SNP to get their MPs in. They're paying Peter Lilly to get whatever referendum result the Tories want. And they're paying Peter Lilly to get whatever election result that the SNP want. So when the SNP are in cahoots with Peter Lilly, and he controls all our elections in Scotland, and you'll probably find if you actually look, he's actually controlling the elections in England and Wales.
Oh, no, he absolutely is. I mean, I don't think there's too many people who actually believe that the Tories won the last election. It would have been yet another hung parliament, and the establishment decided that they didn't want that. So, let's give the Tories the outright majority. So, there's no question that the UK is basically a banana republic when it comes to elections now. And it seems to me that the Scottish people have been well and truly duped. And I will readily hold up my hand and say that up until September the 18th, 2014, I actually believed that the SNP had the best interests of the Scottish people at heart. Now I know that the complete opposite is true, and that the SNP have nothing like the interests of the people at heart. They have the interests of a few senior executives, effectively controlled by Mr. and Mrs. Sturgeon, who will do very, very well out of it. And sadly, what we're going to find, of course, is that if this named person scheme does come about, you're probably right, Mel, it will actually manifest as a named pervert scheme, in more cases than we care to consider. One last point I do want to make on the named person scheme, and you touched on it when you made the observation that the named person scheme will apply to the fetus. And, here's an article from the Mail Online just about 10 days ago now. NHS to harvest babies' organs. The ghoulish proposal gives mothers pregnant with a damaged fetus an agonising choice: abort the dying child or give birth so body parts can be used for transplants. Guess who's going to make that decision in Scotland? It won't be the parents. It will be the named pervert who will decide on behalf of the establishment whether or not you are going to be permitted to abort your child, or whether you will be, the decision will be made for you to bring your child into the world so that it can effectively be used immediately for body parts. I mean, once again, we are talking here about an agenda that was being perpetrated 70 odd years ago in a country not too far to the east from here. And, I thought we went to war to shut down that kind of socio-psychopathic behaviour. But here it is emerging in the UK. Mel, have I got this right here?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't understand why SNP wanted abortion devolved. I mean, the abortion laws are straightforward. No one's got a problem with them. Most people are happy with where they're at, unless you're against abortion. But so I thought, why do they want abortion laws? But then when I saw that they've even made the unborn child part of this. Now, just before, a few weeks ago, Labour put forward that the Scottish state, motherland, should own everybody's organs from birth. Now, SNP said they only voted it down because they, after the election, want to put in their own version of the bill. So will their own version of the bill include the power by the named person in it? But all of them are in agreement that after the Scottish election, they are changing the rules on transplants to say the state bloody owns everybody's organs from the minute they're born, but they want to change it to, and I'm 100% certain of this, to say, and we also own the organs of your unborn child, and then we'll appoint your unborn child a named person. So, because that's the only reason they're putting it in. There's no other good reason. I mean, these people are, as you say, sociopaths. Dr. Mengele is the sort of person that they would actually back.
In fact, one could almost believe that Mengele has been reincarnated into a Scottish politician somewhere here. It's completely outrageous. Well, there's a lot of other issues we could have talked about tonight, and we will be touching on the fracking issue because, of course, the SNP, which introduced the moratorium on fracking in Scotland, is basically getting ready to lift it. And if, as expected, the SNP get their outright majority in Holyrood on May the 7th, then I fully expect that the moratorium on unconventional gas exploitation will be lifted by probably no later than September. Well, we're going to be talking about that in 45 minutes on Fracking Nightmare with Trish Buchan from Scotland Against Fracking. And we're also going to be joined by Helen Bender, the daughter of George Bender, who 5 months ago today sadly committed suicide because of the pressure of dealing with the unconventional gas industry in Australia. Mel, we're right out of time on Humanity versus Insanity tonight. I think we're going to be talking a little bit more about Scottish issues before May the 7th. So, we'll stay in touch on that. But just before I sign off, one event that I want to draw people's attention to on Easter Saturday, the 26th of March. This is an event being organised by students in Manchester. And it's going to be an open debate, and they've invited me to participate. Basically, the whole idea is to look at what the youth are doing and can do to challenge the totalitarian state that is being rolled out, obviously in Scotland, as we've discussed tonight, but also at an alarming pace through the rest of the country. So this is 2 p.m, Saturday the 26th of March at the Ram and Shackle in Fallowfield, Manchester, M20 4AW. Well, that's it from me tonight from episode 66 of Humanity versus Insanity, the Crane Report. For regular viewers, I'll see you in 45 minutes on Fracking Nightmare.